topic of this episode is dedicated to Xfinity. Is yours bout quality as this person's empire?
So that's the normal amount of rum for an episode. You just said the X word.
Wife?
Well played, sir. Well played.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to
that's enough,
another lovely and tainty and late episode of the Black Tower podcast, brought to you by Xfinity being absolute trash and Josh being very annoyed. I am one of your wonderful and illustrious and very deluded hosts, Daniel.
The hell are you diluted with?
Diluted.
1 part Daniel, 6 parts.
Deluded, not diluted.
That's a fancy big word. I got a South Carolina public education. Yeah.
But you knew diluted.
Yeah. That's when you die with a flute near your mouth after getting fucking snooted. All right. You die looted. I'm your Southern United States public education Mahale Andrew. That's spelled QR69 square. That's how you spell Andrew.
Mute my track for the last 30 seconds.
Oh, I'll just cut it out.
And I am censorship Mahale.
That's
right.
You're on the wrong show for that.
I'm so foul and so terrible that Xfinity's like, no, throttle this dude's internet. He's about to talk again. Josh, the Sorovan Mahale.
You've gone over your public speaking quota.
Yeah.
There we go.
We're gonna throttle
You've worded
your
too much. You've worded too much. Too many words.
Why use many words when few words work good?
We do love you all, and we appreciate that you are bearing with us through this difficult Xfinity time.
Yes.
This is the Black Tower podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. We are your 3 Mahales. We will be teaching you all how to get tainty. So as Josh usually says, but I'm going to do it for him just in case his internet sucks, please line up in single file.
Behave yourself in an orderly fashion to receive
in your gars to make sure that you can go ahead and receive your weekly dose of taint straight from the Mahale's mouth and into your ears.
That's like,
if you want to play a fun drinking game, every time Josh gets fucked by Xfinity, take a shot.
There you go. Andrew, we're trying to gain followers, not kill followers.
They can't unsubscribe if they're not around.
Just because it's true doesn't mean you have to say it out loud.
And Andrew's bringing in the dark humor portion of the evening.
It's been a long fucking day, guys.
This is a nice transition for the Gathering Madness that we are doing in October, in less than a month. We have been charged in some ways with going ahead and doing a drinking game while we are watching the Wheel of Time show again.
I thought you meant criminally, and I was like, what the fuck do we do?
Oh, God, no. We are being charged by one of our charges. That we should do a Wheel of Time drinking game. And the suggestion was every time Perrin is useless, we're supposed to take a shot. And I was like, we die before the end of episode 2.
Oh, God. Like in the TV show?
Yes, exactly. Yep. So we got to figure out a different drinking game to do while we are doing our watch through of the Wheel of Time, the television show. But y'all have heard it here before. Those of you who are listening live, if you are not listening live, then there's a small chance that you won't actually be able to attend because it is late enough. But if you can, get on those flights, get on those tickets, RSVP to the Gathering Madness on blacktowerpod.com. It's going to be super fun. We already have events scheduled. We already have things that we're going to be doing. We have guests. We have drinking games. We have cocktail contests. We have Taste the Taint. It's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely, you don't want to miss it if you can be there. Come on down. Come to Los Angeles. It's going to be in Roland Heights. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we'd love for you to be there. And if you cannot make it in person, we do understand flying is expensive, as is driving. And some of you have other obligations, which is totally fine. Definitely come on down and see what we're doing virtually, because we will have the vast majority of what we're doing recorded. And you'll be able to jump into it either live or possibly soon after the event, depending on what the way that we record certain things at certain times. But it's going to be fun. Definitely come on down. And
also a great opportunity to hear Josh without Xfinity screwing him over.
Correct. Which, as you may have noticed, given that he is no longer saying things, and the fact that we are referencing that, he is gonzo.
And if you're listening live in Discord because you're one of our patrons and you no longer see Josh's name in the voice channel, that's probably why. I'm just going to take a wild, uneducated guess here that's what happened.
Indeed.
I was watching and just waiting for the circle around like this picture to just start lighting up. As the patrons got a sneak preview into Josh just reaming into Xfinity.
Indeed, that would have been funny.
But if you want to someone else that definitely probably shares in Josh's Xfinity struggles, go and check out the Crystal Barista. You can easily get to the Crystal Barista's website by going to blacktowerpod.com and clicking on the Indiana Jones-esque rock hounding chibi down towards the bottom. The Crystal Barista is our official and long-term and very kind channel sponsor. So if you enjoy minerals and rocks and gemstones and just all around cool people that you can go and look for these gems and rocks and stuff with, especially if you live in the Ogden, Utah area, go and check out the Crystal Barista.
Indeed.
All with that being said, there is a gnat in my room.
Rude.
See, the worst thing about having a gnat flying around near like your computer setup is the trying not to break your microphone or a monitor or not, your open monster drink across your desk trying to kill a gnat. What? Monster is delicious.
No. I'm reacting to the getting monster all over your setup. That's I do declare.
I've lost a few keyboards in my day.
I believe you.
I don't think any of them been to Monster.
That's fair.
But anyway, we're gonna get into this today's whatever you want to think of its episode. If Josh is able to join us again, he will. If he's not able to join us again, he won't. And so you will either be thankfully or horribly stuck with just Daniel and I, and it may fluctuate between those emotions as we speak. But
usually does.
Well, before we get into today's topic, before we even mention today's topic, because it's not a name you learn until further in the series than book 3, after book 3. Do you learn book 4?
I think it's after book 4.
Great Hunt.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah. Chapter 34. That's 3rd. 2nd. Fucking
no, Great Hunt is 2nd. Yeah.
Yeah. But first appears in Winter's Heart. So
there we go. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Oh, okay. I know why it says first mention in The Great Hunt. Because it doesn't actually use their name. It uses like a title.
Yes.
That's why you.
Yeah.
Yes, sneaky fucks.
Yes, sneaky bastard.
We should just do a whole episode where we talk all about a character that you don't see until later on and just like vaguely mention things without mentioning the name. But
right,
speaking
so
of a name,
is gonna be a spoiler-free episode because we're just going to be so vague that we say nothing of.
There's like a person and they like do some stuff because there's like a prophecy.
Yeah. That guy in that movie about that thing that they do that one time. Yeah.
That thing you do is actually a good movie. I quite enjoy that.
It's such a good movie.
It's one of my favorites.
Every day just doing that thing you do.
Speaking of people that do that thing they do, here's your spoiler warning, courtesy of the lovely and fantastic Norm.
Hello, I'm Tam Sorrell Norm. You may remember me from the Dusty Wheel or the Black Tower podcast. I'm here to give you a public service announcement about spoilers, as this episode may contain some. As if you didn't already know that, like watching the film Titanic and being surprised that the boat sinks at the end of the movie. Hello, moron. The movie is called Titanic. Of course, the boat fracking sinks. This show is called the Black Tower Podcast, as in from the Wheel of Time. And these three guys are Ashaman. Well, at least two of them. I don't know about that Josh guy. Anyway, you have been warned.
Can I just say I love that you use that one for this particular fucking episode? Because the fact that Josh is gone. No self-respect. Hey, Josh, I'm gonna say, look at me. Look at me. I know you're watching this because you missed this episode. Look right here. No self-respecting Ashman has this many troubles with the internet. Get your shit together.
How have you not bail-fired Xfinity to get a new company in? What the hell? You go kissing fool, woolhead.
Mother's milk in a cup. All right. So
it's either
Andrew,
really great aim
we?
or Homelander. Anyway,
what are we talking about this week?
So this week we're gonna do like we have so many times, and this is one of the ones. Oh God, no! Oh, live chat. No, why? Why did I mention Homelander? And Mother's milk in a cup. So I feel it's either been forever and a day since we've done an episode on this person, or we never got around to doing an episode on the individual initially known, who eventually becomes the artist formerly known as Tuon Otham Cora Pendrag, also known as the daughter of the Nine Moons, who eventually becomes the Empress, may she live forever, of the Seanchan Empire, where her name, of course, changes to Tuon, not to Tuon, to Fortuona Atham Devi Pendrag. 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 And yeah, Marshall, I agree. Homelander ruined drinking milk out of a sippy cup with a nipple for me too. Just a full immersive drinking experience.
Such a good actor.
Oh, he is. You think that like he can? You think
him so much? His character is such dog shit, but the actor is so good that I just want to like him so much.
Oh God! You think he keeps like milk stocked at his house anymore, or is he just like, I can't do it? Or if he gets into an argument with like his family, he just starts slowly like drinking from a glass of milk, and they're just like, I can't.
It's just your argument is invalid. Just you're right. You're correct. I'm done.
Can't argue with a man with a milk mustache.
It's also true that I don't know whether he had milk stocked before he got the role. So if he did have milk stocked before the role, I'm pretty sure he still does. If he didn't before, then he probably doesn't. Because I don't feel like a role like that totally changes who you are as the core of your human beingness.
I don't know, I'm looking at some of these GIFs in the live chat, and it looks like his entire life is being totally changed. So even for a good actor, like, that's some good fucking milk, apparently.
I mean, sometimes.
Like the first GIF that is like the stereotypical scene where he gets busted, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, it literally looks like somebody like Photoshop edited a scene from an adult film.
It's true.
Anyway, we're not the Homelander podcast, thank
that is correct.
God. So yeah, we're going to talk about Tuon.
Yes.
The daughter of the Nine Moons. The person Matt is terrified of meeting for like, I don't know.
You know, there's actually a surprising, like, fundamental similarity between Fortuona and Homelander. Both of them are actually kind of better than the, like, horrible alternative, but they're also pretty shit. So there's that.
I was
What
almost
are
right.
you doing?
I was counting, all right. When I said he's terrified of meeting her for 8 books, I was close enough. Close enough, I think. Because technically, Witcher's Heart is the 9th book. So I'm just really bad at which book is in which order.
Actually, he's really terrified of meeting her for 5 books because he only finds out about her in the 4th one.
So is that when he gets the prophecy? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
It's okay.
As a review I read of the Black Tower podcast said, we don't even get facts right and we don't research. So obviously not us. That's what we have our fact checker for.
Indeed. And again, as I've said to multiple people, I love the conversational nature of this podcast. And if we actually went through the books and did all of the like post-it noting and so much background and things like that, it would be great. I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of benefit to that. So if that's what you do on your podcast, more power to you. That's awesome. But I like conversational podcasts more than essay podcasts. So my humble opinion is that it's more fun when you are actually just knowledgeable enough about the source material where you make some mistakes, but most of what you say is close enough to on point.
Eventually.
Rather than the ones that are actually like, no, everything that I absolutely say 100% is always true, but you lose some of that conversational nature and you also lose some of that sort of off the cuff, which I very much appreciate. But anyway, that's a different story. That's a different thing that we're talking about. For Tuona, she shows up in the 9th book.
Yeah.
She is small. She has no hair. That's really it. We're done with the episode. It's already over.
So this is after the Empress at the time, whose name I am blanking on. Because it's during Radahana's reign that the Corrine and the Helene begin.
It's also interesting. I didn't know this. This is an interesting thing to add in here. I don't know whether Fortuona will continue this tradition, but Empress Radhanan's name was never used by her subjects or her ministers, which is one of the reasons that we don't really know the name.
That is true.
It's definitely in the books that they do not really talk about it. They mention her as the Empress regularly. They talk about the Empress. They say the line of, the Empress, may she live forever, like blah, 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 all of that different stuff. But the name itself comes up very infrequently, if ever. But yeah, so...
Oh, wait, no, because she's assassinated. I was thinking of somebody else.
Yeah.
That's like the Seanchan general that leads like the return or whatever that fucks up and gets deposed. And
oh, yeah.
It gets like super culturally fucked. Radhanan is killed, and Tuon is actually the second favorite daughter. Or Radahana.
She's the second daughter, the first favorite.
Second and
the
favorite,
second
sorry.
daughter. Yeah.
So did they ever explore like the significance? I know they do. I know they have to. I just don't remember it, of the 9 moons whole thing, because the Empress's court and where the crystal throne sits is known as part of or uses the council of the 9 moons.
As far as I am remembering, they never actually give you the information in the books of exactly what the 9 moons are or why it's called that. It's just the significance that it's called that because of the prophecies that Matt is given. I do not remember there being a ton of significance. I do not remember it being called the 9 moons having real significance outside of Matt's experience.
I mean,
or its relevance to Matt.
Yeah, so the court of the 9 moons is more like, so it is the physical room It is the throne room of the Seanchan.
Yes, it is where the crystal throne is located.
Yeah.
We also never really
get
get enough, or never get a whole lot of information about why it's called the Crystal Throne either.
It's true. I don't know.
So,
I blame it on Arthur
Pandrag Tanriel.
Yeah, blame it on his son. I think the son is the one that goes over to Seanchan, and the daughter is the one that goes to Sara.
Correct.
Anyway, that's more Seanchan lore than it is the actual person we're talking about, I guess. Seeing
Indeed.
hedges and distractions.
Well, so let's talk about a couple of Seanchan traditions just real quick to go ahead and give you the foundation for Tuon. There is the royal family that is the ruling class that is called the Blood in Seanchan. They are specifically, supposedly, descendants directly in a line to Arthur Pandrag Tanriel, or Arthur Hawkwing. And you're never quite sure how diluted or like actually direct the line is anymore, because the Seanchan are known for taking new names and doing things along that line. And so it could just be names at this point, because the royal family is very, very much known for its backstabbing and scheming and things like that. And so you're not really quite sure what has happened in the many, many years between the time that Arthur Hawkwing's children left Randland, or the Westlands, and their return. And now they are returning from another continent. They are trying to take back Randland, which they see as their rightful homeland. And they are doing that with this sort of small, like, herald force, if you will, that's coming in to go ahead and herald the return of the Seanchan to their rightful lands.
Small
presumably,
by Seanchan standards, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Presumably, they will bring the rest of their forces at some point once they send word that it's good enough to come and conquer or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, because I say small, and it depends on, I guess, the segment of force that we're talking about, because we know they send a large number of forces, especially naval forces, to the southern part, south of the Westlands, part of the Aerith Ocean, and they establish control over Trimmelkeen.
Yep.
And they kind of use it as like a base of operations that they try to go up the coast, and of course, the first thing they try to do is try to take Fulham.
Yep.
Which fails horribly. So then they go to the kind of closer and more easily to take, more easy. I can't believe I almost actually said that phrase. And the easier to take over Abu Dar.
Correct. But anyway, so they basically send this expeditionary force that's very large by the Randland army standards, but is a very small population of Seanchan. And it's never really said how much of their army it's a percentage of, but presumably it's a not even half of them thing. And they are here to go ahead and take over the continent for the Empress, who at the time is Empress Redhanan. And Tuon comes with them. She is not there right from the beginning. She is not part of the force that actually tries to take Falma, and she is not actually part of the initial force that takes Abu Dar, but she does show up in Abu Dar once the city is taken, or once the country is taken.
And slight correction of what I said earlier, they didn't immediately go Abu Dar after Falma. After pushed back from Falma, they actually did take Terabon and Almadisia, and then they continued into Abu Dar and southern Altara.
Correct.
Altara, yeah.
So again, we've mentioned this a couple of times, but Fortuona is known as the daughter of the 9 moons because that is what a princess or a to-be empress of the Seanchan is called. Presumably it would be a son of the 9 moons if they were, going to be emperor. Because as we've mentioned, the crystal throne, which is the high seat of power in Seanchan, is called the Crystal Throne, and it is located in the Court of the 9 Moons. Matt gets a prophecy relatively early on in the series, if you're actually looking at all 14 books, that he will marry the daughter of the 9 Moons, and he runs around for 4.5 books basically just being like, are you the daughter of the 9 moons? Are you the daughter of the 9 moons? What does it mean to you when I say the daughter of the 9 moons? And almost everybody is like, nothing. What the fuck are you talking about? And then finally, he meets this young woman who has just come off of a Seanchan ship with her nursemaid and bodyguard Seleucia, who is relatively unassuming. But she's in Abu Dar and she's a guest of Queen Tylin because Tylin is basically being forced under Seanchan customs because she doesn't want to lose her power. And the Seanchan are strong enough to have taken over Abu Dar. But their method of taking over places is to force people to swear oaths to the old empire and the new empire, and then they basically like get folded into the Seanchan in a lot of ways because they're given a lot of latitude, even though they're now presumably like considered subjects of the Seanchan. But again, most of the rulers are still allowed to rule as long as they take the new oaths. They're allowed to still keep most of their power in view or in sort of in the view of the people, even though a lot of the Seanchan are basically calling the shots and forcing some of the rulers to do things that they want. But they're effectively allowed to keep their titles and their lands that are now just Seanchan lands under them. And so Tylin is basically hosting Tuon as a royal guest because she's Seanchan. And she's running around Tylin's palace and Matt runs into her. And she basically says, like, it's very interesting that you have this fox head medallion and this, ring that is that has a sigil of ravens, and your not Al-Kadal, the
Chandari?
Yeah, the Ashandarai has, this old script on it that talks about, the ravens and different things like that. And Tuon is incredibly beholden to signs and omens and portents. And she knows all of these different things to be signs of, we're not 100% sure because she's never super clear about it, but like all of these things to be signs. And so the first time that she meets
Well, there's
Matt,
the
she's
fortune.
like, oh, that's very interesting.
Because there is a Damane that does like give her a fortune about the
Correct.
man that she would marry.
That
And
is correct,
this is after, of course, they take Abu Dar. And then Tuon kind of shows up, kind of as like, I would imagine she is showing up as like an advanced leader. I mean, she is number 2 in the leadership hierarchy, which is why she's also the target for so many assassination attempts, especially after her mother is assassinated. But I imagine she's sent over and is like, look, her mom is like, I, as the Empress, will maintain the Crystal Throne. You can go and have the quartz throne, even though, no, quartz still makes a crystalline structure, but whatever. I see. Watching some of the Crystal Barista's videos helps out. And
Right.
crystals are just the structure. It's not an actual thing.
Indeed.
But yeah, I don't know. They give her some other kind of throw.
Structure.
Yeah. So I imagine that's why she's there in the first place. That would make sense. That would explain why she is in Ebu Dar, and not in Terabon or anywhere else. Because if she was just going out to survey like the damage of the land, like there's no reason for her to necessarily predominantly land in Ebu Dar or stay in Ebu Dar and be hosted at the palace, at Thailand's palace. But yeah, so it is there where Matt has found himself a Damane and thinks he's doing a great service to the Damane, which in some ways he is, but I think at the time the Damane is like, no, fuck this, like you're doing a horrible thing. And he's like, I don't care, you're coming with me.
It's a little 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other, because he actually finds a number of Damane, and they kind of span the gamut of everywhere from I'm already very broken and I don't think that there's a way out of this, and you should just not be doing what you're doing because I don't want to be freed, because it's just going to be worse for me when they catch me again after I'm freed, all the way up to, yeah, let's fucking go. I'm done with this shit. I absolutely need to leave.
Yeah, you're right. It is plural Damane.
But yeah.
But it's what I always found was very interesting in the passage. And yes, it's probably because, well, not probably, it's definitely because of the fortune and the omens and everything that Tuon sees all this. And whenever Matt's like, you're coming with me too, Tuon's just like, okay. All right.
Well,
yeah,
I love this scene in some ways, because again, as you hit the nail right on the head, it's a little bit 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other of she has effectively stumbled on to Matt doing something that is absolutely treasonous to the Seanchan Empire. Now, granted, Matt isn't Seanchan, and he doesn't want to be, and he's never actually really going to be like a Seanchan subject in so many ways, because that's just who Matt is. He's barely even like an Andorian subject. Like, so, you know, he doesn't really care, to be fully honest, what he's doing is treasonous, but like, he's definitely gonna get just absolutely murdered if he gets caught. I mean, he's not, because he's got plot armor, but again, ostensibly he's going to just be absolutely murdered if he gets caught doing what he is. And so Matt immediately goes, all right, well, you're coming with us because you've now seen too much, and if we let you go, you're going to tell somebody and you're going to give us away, and we're going to get in huge trouble, and it's going to stop everything that I need to have happen from happening. So congratulations, you stumbling onto us means you're coming with us. And of course, then Tuon also like goes, I know a lot of things that I'm not necessarily supposed to know as a human being, because I've seen heard these foretellings and follow these signs and have all these portents and things like that. So I know that I need to go with you. So, okay, yeah, kidnap me. That's what's happening. Just kidnap me, daddy. Like, that's what we're doing from now on. And so it's this like super weird, wonderful scene where Matt thinks that he's doing this thing, and then she's like, okay, I guess we're doing this thing. And he's like, please just go along with this thing. And she's like, yeah, okay, sure, that's happening. And like Selucia is just beside herself that this is happening, and Tuon's just like, hey, Selucia, calm down, this is happening now, and we're just gonna go.
Yeah, and it's like the toughest time Selucia has ever had, like maintaining her station.
Oh yeah.
But it's cool because we get to see a lot about the dynamic about how the Kova, the Koblet, the
Dakovel.
Yeah, that one. The Dakovel. What the nature of their relationship with the people they serve. at least amongst the high blood, because in some ways, Seleucia and Tuon are very formal at all times. But there's these instances where they can speak freely, and they're pretty much friendly. And Seleucia shows a great deal of devotion to Tuon, and an incredible readiness to just shank a motherfucker for Tuon. Like, doesn't care. Like, I'm pretty sure whenever like Matt bumps into her, like they run into her for the first time, like Seleucia is like, I'm a fucking stab. And he's just kind of
yeah.
How about you let's not do that? No.
I like my parts being where they are.
Yeah. I like my blood like I like my pizza inside my body.
Yep.
But I mean,
so there is another
not how
thing.
everybody is, but
Yeah,
definitely not what I expected. Having read, part of how a lot of the blood acts, especially like whenever we met Turok.
Oh yeah,
down in Falmouth. I'm like, oh okay, like
he's
they're horrible to
everybody under him. Yeah.
But no, I thought it was pretty cool. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Tuon and Seleucia get kidnapped by Matt in this scene where he's trying to free a number of Damane. I believe all of which are actually former Aes Sedai, and therefore Marath Damane technically, but Damane for short. And so they get out of the city. They go to oh, for sake, what's his name?
Arde?
No, the circus. What's his name?
Luca.
Valen Luca's traveling circus.
And his well-turned calves.
Yes, indeed. They hide there for a while until it's very clear that they can't really hide there anymore. And then they leave there. They run around for a little while. And then Tuon goes back to Abu Dar to find out that the entire city and the Seanchan homeland are effectively just plunged into chaos because Semirhage has just murdered, with help, basically the rest of the royal family. Like, all of the rest of the people in Tuon's immediate family are dead. Sisters, brothers, mother. Nothing is said about her father, so I imagine that he's not really there, but like all of her siblings and her mom and like 4 of her cousins who were also in line to go ahead and be the empress if Tuon didn't make it are all dead. Every single one of them. And she's just like, oh great, this is really fucked. And so she enlists the help of a number of very, very close allies and very, very devoted people to the Seanchan Empire. And she goes, all right, I guess what we're doing now is going after the White Tower, because what we need right now is a show of strength and to basically get back to what we were doing here in the first place. And what we need is as many Marath Damane as we can get a hold of, as well as to show the continent that we're basically still strong. And so they do this sort of raid on the White Tower, and it does not go badly for them, even though it's not fully successful.
They do a little just before, because the plan for the raid for the White Tower was definitely already there. There was already something that the Seanchan Empire was looking at, but and I think this is important foreshadowing for how Tuon acts later on. Tuon puts the plan on a hold once she knows she is supposed to be meeting with the Dragon Reborn.
That is correct.
And she says, we will do this possibly. She's like, I will make my decision on if to move forward or not after I meet with the Dragon Reborn.
Correct.
And they meet, and it doesn't go well. And Tuon, that's when she turned around and she's like, I'm motherfucking Empress Fortuata, bitch. And go get the White Tower.
Yep, that is very true. Because in this particular meeting, well, so Rand has been tricked at this point into meeting with Tuon. That's not actually Tuon because it's Semirok.
Yeah.
And she blows his hand off with a fucking fireball that's intended for men that he stops using his goddamn hand. And so he is very mad and very not looking to negotiate with anyone, especially the Empress of the Seanchan, because he knows that he didn't meet with her. Like, after their meeting, he knows that it was the Forsaken. But we all know that if you were to actually meet with someone who had the face of someone else and it went horribly wrong, you would be affected by that when you actually went to meet with the person who you were legitimately supposed to meet with. Even if you know that they're not the person you just met with, it's still going to affect your judgment. Now, again, I am not just waving my hand and trying to justify Rand's actions. He's a douche in the meeting with Tuon. He absolutely comes in and tries to browbeat the shit out of her and tell the Seanchan what they are and aren't going to do, and that he's the big bad dragon reborn and they're going to listen to him or they're going to fucking die. Which is not a good way to go into a negotiation, even if you are what you think you are. But it doesn't go well, unsurprisingly, because again, Rand is a dick. And Tuon's a little bit of a dick back, which is also not totally justified, but Rand started. So you kind of get it. And so then, yeah, as you said, she definitely at that point decides that they're going to go after the White Tower. It's a somewhat successful raid because they do actually capture a number of... they get a number of Marath Damane. And the only thing that really stops them from being completely successful is that Egwene is now in the tower. And she turns around and goes, "Nuh-uh, you Seanchan fucks," and pushes off the attack. But not before, as I said, a number of Marath Damane are taken. Elida is taken from the tower. It cripples the tower in a lot of ways. It's not great. Though it is kind of great because it does allow the Saladar Aes Sedai to come in and finish the job and remake the tower, sort of. But yeah, so this all happens and they come back to basically their staging grounds where Tuon is. They tell her about what happened. They tell her about everything. I think part of the reason that she ends up going ahead and doing this is because of Egwene and her success at the White Tower. But when she goes back to, or when the troops come back from the White Tower, very soon after, as they're kind of licking their wounds in some ways, Rand shows up again. Well, really a messenger from Rand shows up again and says, "Hey, so you remember the last time that you and Rand talked? It wasn't great. He'd like another chance. Would you guys come down and sign the Dragon's Peace at the Fields of Marilor so that we all fight the last battle together instead of not having your strength for the last battle?" And Tuon goes, "I will hear him out." So she goes to the Fields of Marilor and signs the Dragon's Peace. And then there's still a little bit of question as to whether she is going to actually charge her forces with fighting the last battle. But she does end up coming through. The Seanchan are absolutely part of the force that fights the Shadow in the last battle. At which point she has a conversation with Arthur Hawkwing, who has come back as one of the Heroes of the Horn. And he tells her, "Congratulations on the baby." And she goes, "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" And he's like, "Congratulations on the baby." And she's like, "Oh, okay, great. guess it's time to go rebuild Seanchan. And that is basically where she is at the end of the story. Is presumably her and Matt are going back to Seanchan to show her up the difficulties that Sayandar has been having with the death of all of the rest of the blood, because Semirog was thorough.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that happen at, to me, like for Tuon or Tuon's story really kicks off for the last battle. I mean, her story is interesting, or really kicks off. Well, yeah, because she winds up pregnant right before the last battle, because that's when Matt gets yet another badass scene where she's looking and she's practicing like combat forms in the garden, and the Death Watch guard are all around her. You know, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to keep her safe, even though they just learned about, I don't know, fucking gateways. And they're like, yeah, it's impossible. And then Matt just throws a dagger in her direction. She doesn't really care. Like, she trusts him. So she just watches a dagger stick in the arm of a gray man as the Death Watch guard all like rush and
like
try to pin Matt to the ground
out of each other. Yeah.
And he's just sitting there being like, did you not see the assassin? And then literally embarrasses like the creme a la creme of the fucking Seanchan army.
Yep. Which, in their defense, gray men are legitimately supposed to be the best assassins ever because they're 100% nigh unseeable.
Yeah.
And the only reason that Matt does is because he's lucky as fuck and a Taviran. And so, like, again, he has this advantage that they don't, but also, yes, they definitely are embarrassed because they're like, oh shit, our Empress just almost died and this stupid Westlander saved her.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Wait, no, I need to do that again. They're standing there being like, well, god dang it, Bobby. We just got our asses handed to us by Matrim Coffin.
You brought a gray man into our throne room? Whoa. Which wasn't a throne, but into
There's
our
something
garden?
not right with that man, Bobby.
But then you get to see like some of the openness of some of the Seanchan, especially like the ruling class, because like she's like, let him go, and then as she's like berating the Death Watch guard, telling them to let him go, she just strips, like just disrobes, and Matt's like, will you ever love me? And she's like, the Empress never loves, but I am glad to see you. Then they spend the night together, and then an heir to the Seanchan throne is presumably conceived.
Yes.
But after this, whenever Tuon has her first true meeting, her first real, like, actual productive meeting with Rand, because the last Rand she met was not a Rand that should be negotiating international and foreign policy with, a massively successful empire.
That Rand shouldn't be negotiating what outfit he should be wearing. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. But the Rand that comes back now, obviously, as we're near the last battle, is this well put together Rand. Yeah, mostly well put together. Yeah. He's got his eggs all in mostly the same basket. It's a big basket, but it's mostly in the same basket. And they're having this conversation, and Rand just starts ripping apart every detail of Fortuna's professed right to rule. And he's like, okay, yeah, you may be descendant from Alter Hawkwing, and so yeah, that would mean that you would have inherited his empire. Except if it wasn't for the fact that I'm the Dragon Reborn and I controlled all of the lands on the Earth before Alter Hawkwing was even alive.
Yep.
So, yeah. How are you going to rationalize that? And she's like,
we're just
I believe you're the Dragon Reborn. Yeah, pretty much. And so that's when they make what many readers, and understandably so, think is the worst ever deal brokered by Rand, because that's where Tuon agrees, Tuon agrees that the Seanchan will be party to the Dragon's Peace based off of these conditions, and they will assist in the last battle against the Shadow on the condition that they're able to maintain all the Marath Damane that they have captured on the mainland thus far. There was more stuff that I was looking at that happened after that, because Fortuna does meet with Egwene to talk about the terms of the Seanchan aid in the last battle. And as expected, the conversation does not get off to a very kind start because Egwene hates the Seanchan. And in the Seanchan eyes, she is Marath Damane. So they don't really care for her either.
Yeah.
But I mean, Egwene eventually is like, you guys once collared me, so that's kind of like, fuck you. And then Fortuna was like pissed that she didn't know about that. She was like, hey, if I'm gonna go meet, I don't know, the most powerful female channeler in the world, well, besides Nynaeve, but she doesn't know about Nynaeve.
No, most powerful.
No, Nynaeve is stronger.
She's stronger in the power, but not politically.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
So yeah,
I was talking power strength.
I know.
Okay, so fair point. With the strongest female channeler in the world, asterisk.
Yes, there we go.
It is kind of like, why the fuck didn't you tell me that, I don't know, she might hate our guts? And they're just kind of like, whoops.
Well, I love the situation because she does say that. And I get why she says that, and I get why she's annoyed at that, but it's also like, are you even remotely aware of how far down the bureaucracy that was? Like, lady, we didn't tell you because none of us fucking knew. Nobody in your like inner circle court knew about this shit because that was so far down below our pay grade.
But what I really like about this interaction between Egwene and Tuon is it asterisk accomplishes something that the Dragon's Peace doesn't directly accomplish with the Seanchan. This is where Fortuna agrees that they will leave all the borders, or at least in the Westlands, as they stand currently. Like, we will leave the sovereign borders as they are right now. No worries. And Egwene's like, yeah, you should also let go of Tremel King. And Fortuna's like, I don't want to let go of Tremel King. And Egwene's like, well, you don't have a leader there. And they don't acknowledge the Seanchan as rulers there. So just let it go. And Fortuna's like, fair point. All right, cool. And so now,
way to back me into a corner, lady.
Yeah. And am I remembering wrong? Wasn't the scene of the Far Snow on Tremel King?
Sorry, say again.
The sex igloo, wasn't that in Tremel King, or is that actually in the Seanchan lands? I can't remember.
I am pretty sure that it's in Seanchan lands, but I don't actually know that for sure. I think
at the time of Fires of Heaven, Tremel King is Seanchan lands.
Correct. Which is why, as far as I am fully aware, it is never confirmed where it was. Also, if I am remembering correctly, Tremulking is actually not snowy enough.
I think you're right. I think I'm thinking Tremulking being important because of the Choden Call. That's what I'm.
That is correct. One of the Choden, the female Choden Call is on Tremulking.
And it's because it's the female Choden Call. Yeah. I don't know why I had it stuck in my head. I'm gonna cut that part out.
Yeah, whatever.
Just so I don't seem quite so dumb.
I don't think you sound dumb at all.
But... yeah, well, I don't either, but it was funny to say. Anyway, so
that part is very accurate.
So Egwene negotiates the release of Tremel King, which is a Sea Folk stronghold, actually.
Correct.
So the Sea Folk have that part back, which makes sense because Egwene does have a lot of love for the Windfinders and the Sea Folk. And
though it is a little rough because Egwene doesn't actually know that there's a lot less people on Tremalking at this time.
Oh yeah.
Because actually a bunch of the land living sea folk, the ones who make the porcelain, have killed themselves.
Amayar. There you go.
Yes. After the cleansing of Sidene, which is not great.
But there's some interesting things that Egwene agrees to, but she agrees to them with like a fair bit of logic. So she agrees that the Seanchan can send emissaries to Tarvalon. They'll have free board, and that they are allowed to collar any woman who wishes to be collared, which she obviously agrees to, thinking nobody in their right mind would agree to be collared. And then the counterpoint is like, oh, you say that, but though it's a very different mechanism, people still willfully use the oath rod. Just will they continue to do so after they know the effects of the oath rod? Like they already know. Collar's still definitely a worse option, absolutely. But
Yeah.
You might only have half your life left after the oath rod, but at least you still control your life. So there's that.
Well, it's also a question. It's also one of those situations where, again, you understand very much why Robert Jordan leaves this part out of the story, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean that a woman who goes to the Seanchan to be collared for whatever reason can go ahead and then decide to not be collared anymore after the fact? Does that mean that once they've made that initial decision, they never get another decision again? Like, it's left very ambiguous, and I would not be surprised if he did that on purpose to a lot of an extent.
But as that meeting starts to draw to a close, Egwene points out, she's like, well, anybody that can control the color, your soldam, can also learn to channel. So for the same reason you collar Marath Damane, you should be collaring the soldam as well by your own logic. And Fortuono gets very defensive for the obvious reason that she could be a soldam.
Yep.
And then Matt kind of gets in the middle, is like, hey, whoa. And then they finally make the agreement to, like, obviously the final little stipulation that Fortuna wins out on is, she's like, we will fight, but Seanchan forces will listen to Seanchan generals, not you.
Yeah.
Which Egwene is like, I really don't care.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Like, as long as they're there soaking up Trolloc blades, I don't care.
Yes.
And at this point,
and of course,
Min is still the Doomseer for Fortuna. Correct.
It's also kind of funny because that at the time that the Seanchan actually show up to help in the last battle, the compulsion of the 4 great captains that are left have basically been recused or relieved of duty by the time that the Seanchan show up. But at the same time, it's also a situation where, like, if they were under the tutelage of those great captains, they'd be so much more fucked than the fact that they're under their own general. So it's definitely one of those, like, moments where you're like, that might have been a good idea.
And quick correction on what I just said. Min is not, as of yet, her Doomseer, but does become her Doomseer after this meeting with Egwene, because they're walking back and Min just kind of accidentally offhand mentions that, hey, there's going to be an assassination attempt on on Tuon's life. And Tuon's like, oh, you can see the future? You're my Doomseer. You're going to stay with me from now on. And Matt's like, you should really stay with her.
Yeah.
So, and then after this, of course, is when we get into the full actual last battle, where the Seanchan forces all retreat by the order of Fortuna and Matt, because Fortuna turns out to be an actually incredibly talented tactician as well, which should be. And so mainly through her faith in Matt and a lot of her own planning that she helps Matt with, the Seanchan make a significant difference in the battle.
Yes, they do.
So the only thing we're left with wondering, and I don't know how much we actually wonder about it, is do Avienda's views come true? Does Tuon do anything that actually staves off a reinvigorated Seanchan invasion? There's reason to believe that her conversation with her ancestor there, with Otter, does a lot to convince her to, like, you don't need to do that. Like,
Yeah.
because I think, doesn't Otter pretty much, after, like, before saying, oh, and by the way, congrats on the baby, it's pretty much like, like, my kingdom had its day. If it's no longer, part of the consolidated kingdom of Otter Hawkweed, that happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Kind of like, just fucking go with it. He's like, you accept all these omens that tell you to just go with things as they are, and this is like one of the only things that you just don't care. They're just like, no, we got to do it. But I mean, I can kind of understand why she's so dead set on this, because she was born in 980 NE. And so at the time of the last battle, she's 19, maybe 20 years old. 19, 20 years old. Yeah, in 999 or 1000. Literally her entire life, the Seanchan have been planning the return to retake the Westlands. So her entire life has been gearing her to potentially be the Empress that presides over, this ultimate realization of Seanchan goals.
Yep.
So it's a lot of these things, a lot of these concessions, in her mind, at least, concessions that they make, are actually pretty massive concessions for her as the Empress to make.
Oh,
we're not going to take any more Marathamani. That is an incredibly massive departure from Seanchan doctrine and tradition and history.
Mm-hmm.
We'll leave the sovereign borders as they are. We will relinquish control of Trimble King. That's part of the land that they were looking to reclaim. Which the land they're looking to reclaim is just all of it. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
Fucking manifest destiny, motherfucker. Holy shit. But
though I will say, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. There is a lot of serious truth in the fact that Tuon is having to go back on years of tradition. But there's also a lot that can be said about the fact that in her mind, there was always the chance that the Empress was going to be killed before the end of this. There's always the chance that that happens, especially given how treacherous and treasonous and assassin trigger happy the blood are to each other. And there was always the chance that Randland or the Westlands or whatever you want to call them was going to put up a little bit more of a fight than they necessarily expected. But there's so much that happens that is just outside of the scope of what you would realistically think of as possibilities between the time of you're born and you're learning Seanchan traditions, and then the Corrine, and then what's actually happening at the last battle. Because, like, seriously, one of the Forsaken actually just coming in and taking out all of the successors to the throne, including the person sitting on it, not something that she could have foreseen, really. Unless her signs are way better than they actually appear, and also she just didn't fucking do anything about it when she did see those signs. Like, but not something that you could really see coming. The fact that Sidene is cleansed and Randland actually has a bunch of Ashaman in it, not something that you could see coming. The fact that she's getting there and the Dragon Reborn is alive, well, and doing shit, not something that they could have seen coming. So there's a lot of things that are definitely different than the original traditions of the Seanchan. And I think that while I absolutely feel very strongly that Tuon is capable of and reasonable enough to actually consider those things and actually say, maybe our traditions aren't the right ones and we need to reconsider this. She's also being hammered over and over with new things that are happening during a war she did not think she was going to be fighting, with a position she did not think she would have, with new things coming to light about like the actual fundamentals of that traditions and things like that. And it definitely takes us some of the wind out of the sails of, oh, that actually just makes, Tuon a much more reasonable person. Even though, again, I think she is, it's also so many different things that are just not what she thought that they were. And so the fact that she's being more reasonable is both, I think, who she is as a character, but also all of these revelations that she's finding out since coming to the Westlands. And it's a very interesting position for her to be in. And also a very interesting position for her to stay in, because I think that on the one hand, when people are faced with all of these different changes, there are two kinds of people in the world: the ones who dig their heels in and the ones who change to match. And Tuon's this kind of like weird conglomeration in the middle of, there are certain traditions that she just digs her heels in and goes, nope, absolutely not. We've done this my whole life. We've done this for so many years. This is the way that we're doing it, and you can't tell me otherwise. And a lot of others where she's like, oh yeah, no, I see the problem with that. I see why we wouldn't want to do that, and we're gonna go ahead and change those things. And you're like, okay, I guess. So I think that Tuon is a very interesting character, and I actually overall like that she is different than a number of the other Seanchan that we meet, a la Suroth and Turak, for example. But at the same time, she's rough to read, because again, in that meeting with Rand and that meeting with Egwene, she is given so much information that on some level is hard. I respect her for the fact that it's hard to verify in the moment, but she definitely looks at the information that she's been given and goes, so what? And anytime that somebody is given new information and they look at you and say, so what? That person is rough to read, because there are just way too many people in real life who do that, and very few of them are actually good people to hang out with. The people who are actually able to get new information and change how they look at the world, those are the people that I appreciate, and definitely get my vote for, are solid, empathetic people. And the people who can't are rough to be around, because some of them are even good people, but when they're given new information and can't / aren't willing to go ahead and actually change their view of things, it's hard. Matt Stagger, you have it very much on the head. She's very reasonable for a Seanchan. That's correct. And that's why she's a little hard to read, because that's kind of like saying you're, the shortest basketball player. Like, most of them are very, very tall. So it's not really saying that they're short. It's just they're short for a basketball player. And so again, it's, she's reasonable for a Seanchan is she's more reasonable than the other Seanchan, but that doesn't necessarily make her reasonable. It just makes her more reasonable. Anyway, those are sort of my final thoughts on Tuon. Andrew, what do you got? What are your thoughts on Tuon?
I mean, I think the reasonable aspect is a good hop on point for my final thoughts.
Awesome.
Because I don't know many leaders in the Wheel of Time that are reasonable. That's one of the big things. Is a lot of these leaders, the ones we love and the ones we don't, whether you love or hate Rand, whether you love or hate Perrin or Matt as leaders, whether you love or hate Morghese or Elaine or any of the wise ones, plenty of these people get new information and go, so what? And to a degree, I can understand that, because if you're giving me new information and it's the first time I'm hearing it and I can't verify anything and it goes vehemently against something I believe, then you're not going to take it hard. Nobody is. You're going to be like, I'm going to have to look at that more before I say anything. Now, you should say that, like, I'm going to have to look at that more, not just
and then actually do it.
Yeah.
But yes.
But I mean, there comes in the other side of that as well, is, just because you're presenting new information that is a truth for you doesn't necessarily mean that it is a truth for that person. Now, there is like a truth, of course, there is like a truth and there is not a truth, but a lot of things are more subjective than people want to give them credit for. Which is why you should have conversations with people about the things they believe in. It should be a conversation, not an argument, not a should be a conversation, not an exercise in evangelism. Is the biggest thing.
Or don't.
Yeah,
maybe the wrong word.
Have a conversation, because I think what more people would find is that people have a lot more in common in terms of like their values than sensationalized statements and headlines would lead you to believe. But Tuon is, yeah, it's definitely like saying like she's the best behaved criminal, right? Like, you're still in jail, but you're allowed to work the library because you don't try to shank the other inmates. Like, she definitely sees the light on several issues. There are indications that she is going to eventually see the light on other things, like the practice of Damane. If nothing else, we've seen over and over again leaders make decisions based purely off of their own vested interest and how they think it'll influence them. And I think she very much falls into that category of either I have to submit myself, the Empress, to do this, which will, if you thought the last Empress dying threw everybody into chaos, let an Empress surrender to be, Damane.
Collared.
Yeah. It'd be like, I don't know, a sitting U.S. president actually getting arrested and thrown in prison. Except, it's not single point rule, so that's not really a good thing. It'd be like if the municipal deputies of like St. Petersburg and Moscow got what they're apparently calling for, and Putin got thrown in jail by the Duma. Russia would probably be in absolute chaos, which is a terrifying prospect to consider. Anyway,
yes, it is.
But yeah, I don't particularly enjoy reading too much of Tuon's sections. I think it's interesting, much in the same way that if you're not really into glass blowing is interesting. Like, it's cool to watch. It's interesting information to see, but I can kind of take it or leave it. So,
sorry, you actually just popped in another of my final thoughts on Tuon, which is one of the things that I will actually say, because I think it's important to say. One of the reasons that we actually love this series so much is the realism in it. And if nothing else, Tuon is real. She is written realistically. A ruler who is given new information that goes against all of their previous traditions and their whole life absolutely will sometimes just say, so what? And again, you don't need to like reading those things for it to be realistic. It can be hard to read. In fact, part of the reason that it's hard to read is that we all know people like that. And that's actually part of what makes it harder to read. If it was totally outlandish, I feel like all of us would be like, this is so interesting. Nobody actually acts like that. But they do, though.
Yeah. But on the same token, she also shows that there are, just like there are leaders that will say, so what? There are leaders that will also go, fair point. Let's make some changes.
No, absolutely. And so that's the other thing that I will say about Tuon is that she does feel real. She does feel realistic. And that's one of the things that I actually appreciates about her in some ways, is that Robert Jordan includes a lot of characters we don't like for the realism of those people. And even though that makes a character I don't like, I do appreciate their inclusion by Robert Jordan in the story because it does make more characters that are realistic.
You can not like a good character.
Yes.
But Tuon is a good character.
Yes.
As from
even if she's
like,
not a good
standpoint.
Person necessarily.
Yeah. She doesn't have good character. She is a good character.
I see what you did there. I like that.
every once in a while I say something good.
You say good things a lot.
But so if the Seanchan part of this discussion piqued your interest more than actually talking about Tuon, we've done some episodes on the Seanchan talking about different things with the Seanchan. So you're more than welcome, of course, and encouraged to go back and listen to some of those and let us know if there's anything from those we need to rehash. But what are some of your favorite that you really enjoyed the moments or favorite that you really hated the moments and they stick out to you with Tuon? And I know much like Matt Stagger has said in the live chat, I agree. It's a lot easier to read Tuon when Matt is around to provide some form of comedic relief to whatever bullshittery is going on. But let us know in the comments below. You can hop over in our Discord and let us know. We have a channel for our episode discussions where you can talk full spoilers on the episodes. If you're a Patreon member, you can comment on the early access if you're able to get there, and let us know what you think about it if you weren't able to listen live. And of course, if you want to be able to live comment and tell us how wrong or right we are, by all means, join the Patreon and come and please join us at our live recordings every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific, if you're one of those West Coasties, not an East Coastie. I don't know.
West Coasties. That sounds like a dessert.
Yeah, it does. West Coasties and East Coasters.
There we go.
It sounds like an entire like seaboard-based, like, I don't know exactly what sports team.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe like ultimate dodgeball teams. the nation's biggest game of Red Rover.
There you go.
Let San Francisco come over.
I love it.
Everybody in the middle of the country is just screaming as two walls of people just rush at them. Somebody plays the Attack on Titan music.
Yep.
Oh man. Anyway,
solid stuff. All right, but yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being here for this episode. We are sorry that our Soravan Mihail got disconnected by his ISP. Hopefully he will go.
But I feel like Xfinity is going to be sorry.
Oh yes, okay. I would have loved to get his opinion in here just because I like more opinions. But it was, for better or for worse, more succinct. Just the two of us.
Yeah, we took 1/3 of the perspectives out of the conversation.
It's amazing how much less that makes an episode last when you just eliminate 1/3 of the opinion. But we wish him well. We wish Xfinity to be better, and hope that he rips someone who actually deserves it a new one. If you're actually just a a foot soldier at Xfinity, then I am so sorry for you when you get the call from Josh tomorrow. But we are very glad that you were here. We are so happy that you listened to this episode. Definitely, as Andrew said, come on into the Patreon family. We'd love to see you for the live episodes. I have been your Amen Khan Mahale, Daniel.
The Sora von Mahale has been here in spirit, if that wasn't clear already. And I have been your Bajan Mahale, Andrew.
And from all of us here at the Black Tower Podcast, we hope that you are having a lovely week, an amazing Friday or Tuesday or whatever day it is for you. And in case we don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
In the tower, you can bring your pain. In the tower, you can feel the strain. You've been having so much trouble just fitting